I'm really privileged to be here today and to talk to you about something that's incredibly close to my own heart. I noticed in the programme someone had mentioned my passion about walking and walking boots, and it's absolutely true. And for me, one of the great things that I've been trying to do while I've been at the Trust is to bring up to the same level of visibility all that we do in the natural environment, alongside, as you say, Joe, what we're best known for, which is our great houses and gardens. But what are we here for today? What we're here for today is the really, really big issue, because nature, as we've heard, is just fundamental to life itself. It provides everything on which we depend on, and more, and it's that more I'm going to focus on today, because nature touches our soul, and it's connections within nature that enlighten and refresh us all. And yet, as a society, too many of us are oblivious to the ecosystems and biodiversity on which we depend. Too many of us are unaware that the delicate balance of our natural world is constantly challenged by the heavy footprint that we've placed on it. Too many of us, and I'm getting closer to home now, are still not prepared to change our lives, to cherish, to protect, and to enrich our natural world. And yet, if we don't, our natural world will no longer be able to cherish and sustain us. So our challenge, this generation's challenge, is no less than to be the generation that turns that situation around, to stop the inexorable decline and to turn nature net loss into nature net gain. That is what we're talking about. Now, last weekend, to help with that challenge, the National Trust launched our new campaign, which you may, I hope, have heard a little bit about already. It's called Outdoor Nation. We're encouraging anyone and everyone to get in touch, to tell us what they feel about access to nature, whether as a society we're getting enough access, whether that matters, how people feel, an unashamedly emotional appeal. Let's see the short film that went with the launch.
Within the Trust, we've found it quite surprising that we've got such a low recognition for all the work that we do in the outdoors. We're really interested to find out whether people are losing touch with the outdoors altogether.
I'd only really heard of the National Trust because I'd visited Waddesdon Manor.
I think more and more people are under pressure in their very busy lives, and we've seen that especially during the last couple of years as we've gone into recession. So there are lots of opportunities, we think, for people to get outdoors, but really they're not just finding time or the inclination to do so. You can get all of your senses going at the same time. You can feel the temperature, you can smell the air, you can feel the wind on your face, and that combination of experiences really seems to uplift people. And certainly we've found that once people get out there, they really come back with their heads in a different place.
Something new that I've never done before, and show everybody that even like city girls like me can come and do rock climbing and pee outside.
There's lots of opportunities in urban environments, or even in the country, for people just to be stuck in front of the television or the Xbox or just on Facebook. But actually, once you get out there, the experiences are fantastic and varied. Big adrenaline rush if you're a youngster, or just a tranquil moment listening to birdsong if that's what you're after.
Gave me loads of inspiration creatively, and it's just a nice setting, like to chill out in somewhere like we are now is just awesome.
What we're wanting to discover from this debate that we're starting now is whether we're doing enough at the moment. If we did provide more opportunities to go for a short cycle ride or a short walk at more of our properties, would you take that up?
There's raise awareness of all the amazing outdoor spaces the National Trust have, and sort of show people like me how amazing it is.
I wonder sometimes, have we actually lost touch with the outdoors? Are we actually seeing enough people getting out there and experiencing those wonderful places? Does this all really matter? Well, at the end of the day, we think it does, but we want to hear from you whether you feel it does as well.
And we want to hear from you too, okay? So get back in touch with that email address. It's touched a nerve already. We've been overwhelmed by comments and ideas. Something's going on, and that something is what this conference is all about. Now, why do we need nature? You know, why in the 21st century, when we've become so sophisticated, we have so much material wealth, does there seem to be an almost primeval urge for the simpler things in life? And yet, at the same time, why are so many people missing out on the direct, the tactile contact with nature? Now, the evidence is not lacking. Nature deficit disorder is the term coined by Richard Louv in his book Last Child in the Woods, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. He's arguing that children spending less time out of doors, and that leads to a wide range of behavioural problems. Now, nature deficit disorder isn't a named mental disorder, but his case is very compelling. He claims that causes for this phenomenon include parental fears, restricted access to natural areas, and the lure of the screen. He spent 10 years travelling around the USA, reporting on and speaking to parents and children about their experiences of nature. And his conclusion, which is really interesting for us, I think, is that a combination of sensationalist media coverage, not, I suspect, by the people in this room, but we know what he's talking about, and paranoid parents are literally scaring children out of the woods and fields, while that growing litigious culture of fear favours safe, more regimented sports over imaginative outdoor play. Now, those findings are mirrored elsewhere in the developed world. Indeed, in the UK, we know that our grandparents roamed far more freely than we did. In fact, we know that there has been a 90% reduction in the distance children stray from their homes since the 1970s. We also know that 1 in every 5 children in the UK today has not visited the countryside, that as many have never climbed a tree, and that 2 out of every 3 children play outside less than once a week. We know that half of adults visit the natural environment less than once a week. We're a nation disengaging ourselves from one of our greatest assets. And what a time it is to be doing that. For even as we spend less and less time out of doors, scientific understanding of its value to us grows more and more. Recent research from Essex University shows that as little as 5 minutes green exercise can have a significant impact on self-esteem. And in a nation where 1 in 4 adults now experiences clinical mental illness during their lifetime, at a cost of around £77 billion to our economy, our withdrawal from nature borders on madness. Studies have shown a significant benefit and rising self-esteem from time spent outdoors among people with mental health problems, or those who've experienced obesity or domestic crime. Patient recovery rates in hospitals improve, as do discipline and creativity in young people and social participation in the elderly. And again, we don't have to look far to know some of the causes. We can all point an accusing finger at our increasingly wired and technology-dependent society, yet it must be having some effect. According to Ofcom, we now spend 45% of our waking hours plugged in to something. But that prompts the question, why? Why does the natural world, with all its opportunities, not have a stronger call on our time? And there are questions of fairness here too. According to a recent CABE report, those in the lowest income quintile have 5 times less access to quality green space. And in areas where the population is 40% or more black or minority ethnic, the figure is 11 times less. How can we expect emotional connections to be made without physical access? Sorry, I'm going too fast. Octavia Hill, one of the founders of the National Trust, and who would have known all about Hampstead Heath, by the way, she observed in 1895 that the need of quiet, the need of air, the need of exercise, the sight of sky and of things growing seem human needs common to all man. She argued that access to beauty was as important as a roof over one's head or enough to eat. And she and her fellow founders devoted their lives to safeguarding nature and beauty for a nation that, through the Industrial Revolution, was increasingly being deprived of it. And what's fascinating today is the similarities of the early years of the 21st century with that 19th century phenomenon. But 115 years later, we still, as a nation, don't seem to value enough the physical and spiritual refreshment we get from our surroundings. Now, of course, there's lots more work we could do to understand the problems, but we know enough to start now on the solutions. And for all of us, that may be as simple as rediscovering the simple pleasures to be had from being out of doors and recharging our batteries. But it will mean more. It will mean rethinking risk in the name of enabling experience and the provision of outdoor space so that everyone can enjoy it as an integral part of the way we think about both our urban and rural areas, not set aside in a box labelled green issues. All this we can do, but will we? The possibilities presented by the big society offer a world of opportunity where organisations and local communities could work together. But will we take that opportunity? And will we take the opportunity provided by the government's white paper on the natural environment, which Richard Benyon was talking to you about yesterday, to be big enough and bold enough? Now, I'd suggest that that challenge is very much about whether us, the people in this room, can do our job to connect people with nature. Now, we've got to do some important stuff as well, some important practical protection of nature. The very first thing we need to do is to make sure that we don't lose any more nature from the places we have already secured. So we must safeguard our existing natural assets. And in an era where biodiversity gains still are outweighed by biodiversity losses, we have to do a lot more. We need to make sure that our protected areas, such as those that look after the red squirrel, we have red squirrel colonies at Formby and on Brownsea Island, are sufficiently protected. They are still vulnerable. Or take action such as we did on Lundy, quite controversially, to eradicate the rat, to enable the minuscule population of Manx shearwater, this wonderful bird that makes an epic journey to and from Brazil each year, expand from just 200 to 5,000 today on Lundy. And there are some global responsibilities here because we in the UK have 90% of the world population and they are critically dependent on what we do to look after them.